What happens in your mind when you hear the word no? How about when you feel like you failed? Are you tempted to give up? Or do you embrace the word no because you feel like you're one step closer to that eventual yes? My guest today says we need to change our relationship with the word no, viewing it as a stepping stone instead of a failure. I'm joined by best-selling author Andrea Waltz on today's One Simple Thing podcast.
It's time to build a better business by building a better you. This is One Simple Thing.
Hey, welcome you guys. I'm Dave Kirby. So glad you're listening today. Hopefully we'll give you some information that will make you a better you. That's our goal here. Our tagline is build a better business by building a better you. I feel like as you get closer to who you were meant to be, as you get closer to the person you know you can be, that everything in your life changes. Not only will you build a better business, you'll have better relationships and just a better life all the way around. So hopefully we're accomplishing that. As always, we'd love to hear from you. My email address is dave@onesimplethingonline.com. That's the number one in there, dave@onesimplethingonline.com. Andrea Waltz is co-author with her husband of the best-selling book, Go for No. Yes is the destination. No is how you get there. She's a corporate trainer, speaker, and coach who's passionate about teaching audiences how they can overcome fear of failure and rejection and reprogram how we think about the word no. Andrea, I'm so grateful you've joined us here today on the One Simple Thing podcast.
Absolutely, Dave. Thanks for having me.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I'm talking to you. You're in Orlando, Florida, which is kind of my old stomping grounds. I grew up in Central Florida, so tell my family hi if you see them.
I absolutely will.
Your book is called Go for No, which is kind of a maybe counterintuitive thing when you're thinking about sales, when you're thinking about gaining new customers or growing your business. It really is kind of counterintuitive because most of us want to go for the yes, don't we?
Exactly. It is totally counterintuitive. In fact, we've had people over the years say, go for no. I've seen your book for years and I just didn't want to get it. I didn't want to pick it up because I thought, I don't want to get no. I get plenty of no's already. But it really is about changing your mindset around the word no and actually increasing your no's. But it is about changing your mindset first and foremost.
And really, in kind of the subtitle of your book says it all. Yes is really the destination. No is how you get there. So we've got to go through a certain number of no's just to get to yes.
Exactly. And so go for no isn't just about, increasing your no's and never getting to yes. People sometimes say, well, gosh, when do the yeses happen? And I say, well, the yeses are out there. But what happens is we tend to limit our opportunities when we are just focusing on yes and not actually focusing on our activity, which really has to do with where the no's come in.
I was thinking about it as I was getting ready to talk to you here today. I was thinking about when we're kids, we're totally okay with getting no, right? Because we know eventually we're going to wear our parents down and they'll get to yes eventually, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny. We bring kids up all the time. In fact, when we speak, we read a funny story about a little girl wrote named Hadley, and she wrote a story called One Day I Asked My Daddy for a Cookie by Hadley, and she goes through this little scenario about how she asked him, and finally she got the cookie she wanted. And that's the tenacity that we all had, but it gets drummed out of us, somewhere along the line. And so here we are as adults not wanting to have that persistence that we had as kids.
There's a quote in your book that you say, and I really found it kind of profound, at least for me. You say, I realized that failure was the halfway mark on the road to success. It's not a destination to be avoided, but rather a stepping stone to get what you really want. So the key to getting where we want to go is becoming comfortable with the fact that failure is going to happen along the way, right?
Absolutely. And that's the trickiest part of, I think, the whole philosophy of Go for No is that it's very much based on this mindset shift of changing the way you view failure and success and seeing them not as opposites, but really as opposite sides of the same coin, not as seeing where you have a choice between one or the other, but really how they work together so that you can really tap into the power of failure and use it. And it may sound cliche, and I know it sounds trite, but when you embrace that and you can kind of get over this idea of the way you look to other people and some of the perfectionism I think that we deal with, then it can be very exciting and really you can have some major breakthroughs, I think.
Yeah. So today we're talking about changing your thinking with regards to getting a no. You mentioned perfectionism. What are some of the main drawbacks that keep us afraid of failing, afraid of hearing no?
Well, exactly right. So it is that perfectionism and that desire, I think, to not want to appear like we're foolish in front of our friends and family and colleagues and all of these things. And so we keep up appearances and we very much do things that won't have us fall flat on our face. Now, of course, like we were just talking about with kids, we fell flat on our face literally in front of our friends and trying to ride a bike or climb a tree or whatever. We didn't care about any of that. But as adults, right, we very much care about appearances. So one of the things that we teach, Dave, is that we teach people, you've got to give yourself permission to fail. You've got to kind of reparent yourself through this and say, hey, I deserve to learn this new skill, this new business, this sales job, whatever I'm doing, and I'm not going to be perfect right out of the gate. And in fact, even when you're in something 15 years, you know how it is. You have failures. You try new things and you have failures. So it really is about changing your thinking and changing your mental model of how you view failure, seeing it as the stepping stone between you and success. And where no comes in is we equate hearing the word no with a failure. And so it is about seeing the word no in between you and the yes. So understanding that subtitle, yes is the destination, no is how you get there, really understanding that.
I remember, and I don't even remember who it was, and maybe you do, but I remember hearing a guy reading a comment from a guy who's a big sales expert. And he said, I know it's going to take me 5 no's to get to a yes. So every time I hear a no, instead of being like, oh, he said, I celebrate it because I know I'm 1 no closer to getting the yes I'm looking for. That's kind of the mindset you're teaching us here, right?
Absolutely. And that type of mindset and kind of knowing your numbers actually is really important. So it's one of these things where eventually success is a numbers game. And that's kind of what Go for a No is. People say that all the time to us. They say, okay, so what you're really saying is you just increase your no's. And when you do that, the yeses will come. And we say, yeah, it really is that way. It is a numbers game. The problem is because we're all kind of hung up on this old way of thinking and we're not tapping into this model that we used to have as kids. We're not failing enough. We're protecting ourselves and staying in that perfectionism mode. We never have the opportunity to really see how far we can take those numbers and those statistics. But that person that you're talking about, and yeah, all great sales experts, I've heard that too from many different people over the years, and they know their numbers and they value those no's because they know ultimately it's going to pay off. Now, the interesting thing is if you can take the statistics part, but also continually practice your craft and increase your skills and talent, you stop hearing so many no's down the line. But especially in the beginning, you have to be willing to move through and fight through a lot of those numbers because the numbers are against you, especially in the beginning.
We wouldn't expect a baby to walk the first time, right? They're going to fall down a bunch.
Absolutely. Same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to fall down a bunch. That doesn't mean we're a failure. It just means we're getting one step closer to actually being a success.
Yes, for sure.
And that's that mindset shift. You told an interesting story in the book, and I'm not sure if it was you're referring to or someone else, but it was a young person working at a clothing store. And there was a customer that came in and bought a whole wardrobe of clothing, like a couple of suits and several shirts and ties, etc. And can you kind of finish that story for me?
Yeah, absolutely. So the customer comes in, buys all of these things, and the interesting question that got asked, and this actually happened to my co-author and my husband, Richard Fenton, he was the salesperson who helped this customer and had this amazing sale. His boss came over later and said, hey, do you mind if I ask you a question? And Richard said no. And he said, well, out of curiosity, I know you had this great sale, but what did that customer say no to? And Richard realized that the customer in that transaction hadn't said no to anything. He pretty much bought everything that Richard laid in front of him. And then Harold, his boss, said, well, I think if you could just get over that, you could be one of the great ones, because really, how did you know he was done if you never heard the word no? And so that was the other really crazy question was, well, Richard decided that customer was done because he had hit his mental spending limit. So there's a lot of mindset shifts that have to take place, especially in the sales world, where it has to do with your selling from your own pocketbook and things like that.
Yeah, so we don't stop until we know for sure until the customer we don't decide for the customer when they're done, right? We let them tell us.
Exactly.
What a great
that's
lesson.
Really, it is a fun lesson. And that's that whole shift of being willing to fail more and being willing to hear more no's, because in Richard's model, selling to that customer, everything he laid in front of that man he purchased, but he never showed him anything else, and it never heard the word no, not one time. And that is doing that, living kind of in that old mental model.
So as we near the end of the show today, Andrea, we always like to kind of leave the listeners with one simple thing, kind of an action point that they could put into practice today. So what would you recommend as we look at changing our mindset?
I would say to really embrace the what we call the new failure model. And that is understanding that when you fail, when you get a no, it's not the end of the road. It's an opportunity to really lead you to the next answer, to the next part of the process down the road, if you will. So it's about embracing failure, not avoiding it.
So today I just kind of sit and think a little bit, and I kind of come to become at peace within myself about the idea that no is okay.
Exactly. Yes.
Actually, not just okay; it's actually preferable, right? Because of what it means in the long run.
Yes, and you're a good student, because sometimes I don't even go there at first because I don't want to freak people out.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into it a little bit more on the next episode, and I'm looking forward to that. Andrea, thank you so much for being with me today.
Perfect. My pleasure.
Really enjoying my conversation with Andrea. She's going to be with us on the next couple of episodes of the One Simple Thing podcast. Again, her book is called Go for No. Yes is the destination. No is how you get there. It's available through the banner ad on our website. Just go to onesimplethingonline.com. You'll see the banner ad for Andrea Waltz. You can click on it. It'll take you to Amazon.com. Also, if you'd like to visit her website, we have a link to it on today's show notes. Again, today is episode 376. When you go to onesimplethingonline.com, just click on the, right in the upper left corner, you'll see today's episode 376. Click on it, take you to today's show notes. Hey, thank you for listening. Really appreciate it. I'll be back with you again on the next episode. I'm Dave Kirby, and thank you for listening to the One Simple Thing podcast.